Right, welcome everybody. Finally we get started. I apologize that we start a little bit late. We had some technical issues to work out. Maybe the first joiners of you actually saw what we were trying to do, but I think now we're ready to get started. So welcome everybody to this webinar that's going to be today about how a 350-year-old company runs a state-of-the-art project management office. This presentation is brought to you in cooperation with HP Software and from your independent HP Software user community, which is Vivid. Now the voice that you're hearing belongs to me. I will be your host today. My name is Christian Gerdes. I am one of the Vivid directors, and I'm also one of the Vivid chapter leaders in Sweden. With me today, I have Clemens Sachs, who's an Associate Director and Process Owner, Global IT Project Management at Merck. And I also have Richard Haas with me, who's Senior Manager of Project Marketing for Executive Scoreboard, PPM, EPM, and ITOM. And Richard is going to help us today with questions regarding the product that might pop up. And Clemens is actually our speaker and presenter today. Now, before we start, a couple of house rules or housekeeping rules. This is a live session and it's being recorded. You will be able to get access to this recording after the webinar, and we will put it up on our Vivid homepage. If you have questions during the webinar, you can use the control pane that you have on your right and give us your questions, and if we have the time, we will try to answer those questions during the webinar, but you will also get answers to all the questions that were sent in after the webinar is finished, and we will email this out to you. Now the control panel, you will find it to your right, and as you can see, you might have to click that orange little button in order to get it to pop out. And inside that, you will find a questions chat window where you have a field that says type your questions here. Just type your question in that white little box and hit the send button. All right, and now it's time for me to introduce our speaker of the day, Clemens Sachs. Hi, Clemens.
Hi, Christian. Thank you for inviting, and hello from my side. So I have been introduced already, and I want to show you something about my company and how we run our project management office with PPMC and how PPMC supports all this. So going to the agenda for today on slide 8, so I will give you some information about my company. It's the original Merck, so we have two Mercks. If you're from the US, you might know the other Merck. The original Merck is nearly 350 years old and based in Germany. And the other Merck was a subsidiary until First World War, and then it became a company of its own. So we are the original Merck. I will give you some information about my IT organization, so information services, and we'll show you three perspectives with regard to PPMC. First, the journey, kind of looking back, then the current intention and setup of PPM as we have it today, and the lessons we learned from the journey and the perspectives we have with regard to the support tool evolution at IS, what we are doing. So going now to show you the company I'm working for, Living Innovation. It's an interesting motto if you consider we are nearly 350 years old. Maybe it's one of the reasons that we are so old. A company like this needs a certain level of innovation, awareness and innovation in the product to stay alive. So we are present in 66 countries with 4 pharmaceutical and chemical divisions. I'm working together with nearly or over 38,000 employees. we invested 1.5 billion in R&D in 2013 against 11.1 billion of total revenues in 2013. So this is quite a bunch of money to spend in R&D. But as a pharmaceutical company, this is, of course, very clear. Going to the next slide about our divisions. So the 4 divisions are Merck brand with biopharmaceuticals, innovative prescription medicines to treat cancer, multiple sclerosis, infertility, and we also have well-established medicines for cardiometabolic disorders. The consumer health care with over-the-counter pharmaceuticals is the other division in the pharmaceutical area. And then the 2 chemical divisions, performance materials with our high-tech chemicals, especially liquid crystals, pigments, and Merck with life science tools, innovative tools and laboratory supplies for the life science industry. So these are our divisions. And I will tell you some stories. The first is 2 million Merck babies. So an estimated 2 million babies have been born thanks to products we offer, such as Gonal F. So we are market leader in fertility medicine. The second is Nazivine on the moon. So being in the outer space is a bit like having caught a cold. So your nasal mucous membranes will start to swell, and therefore NASA has started equipping the medical kits of the space missions with Nazivine since 1969. So also an interesting story, I think. With regard to the liquid crystals, all started with carrots. Liquid crystals were discovered by chance, as so many innovations, in 1888 already in carrots. And Merck started to research and produced high-quality liquid crystals, but only in the second half of the 20th century. This came really out with computers, of course. Today we are global market leader, technology leader in liquid crystals. You will not see that because there's no Merck brand on your iPhone, but actually half of the flat screen televisions, smartphones, tablet computers contain our products. Now Merck Millipore, this is not so easy to tell a story because it's quite a complex thing, as you can imagine with a picture on the right side. So it's just supporting, we have 60,000 products with regard to laboratory materials and so on, and support scientists all around the world with a Merck Millipore brand. And concerning the financial aspects of our company, so the total capital is shared, the biggest part by the Merck family. They hold 70%, and the shareholders on the market hold nearly 30%. So this is a family-owned, still a family-owned company, uniting the best of 2 worlds, as we say it. So this is about my company, and now I would be interested to hear about the poll result, if there is one. Christian, maybe you can tell, or Richard.
Yeah, we are now, thank you, Clemens, for this introduction of Merck. I must say I'm really impressed that there are such big old companies in the world. And it's nice to listen to what you have to say. I hope you can see now the poll, and I'm going to leave it over to Richard, who will actually ask the question.
Thank you, Christian, and thank you, Clemens. So yes, hi everybody, this is Richard. So we're just going to do a couple of quick polls here just to find out a little bit about our audience. So the first one, we wanted to find out the roles of people who are on the call if you're involved in the project management area. I know we have a lot of other visitors as well. So if one of these applies to you, can you please select which is your role? Are you a process owner of some kind? Are you a project leader using project management tools all the time? Do you have some other role in the PMO, Project or Program Management Office? Are you an IT manager who's not necessarily directly involved in the PMO or project management, but has perhaps some project management reporting to you or something like that. And if this is not one of your roles, then just please select other. Just pick one of those, and we'll give people a few minutes to, or a few seconds to go through and select that, and we'll see how many people across these different roles. So once again, which of these roles is most similar to what you do? A process owner, a project leader, somebody in the PMO in some other role, an IT manager, or somebody, some other role not associated with that. And here we can see some of the results. So let me read through the results to give Clemens and everyone else an idea of who's on the call. Actually, the most people involved here are from the PMO organization in some respects. 44% say they're from the PMO, 17% are project leaders, 8% are in IT management in another role, and 2% are process owners, with about 30% of our audience who are none of those roles, which is a very interesting mix. So a lot of people from the PMO, and that's good to know that, that you're on this call. So thank you for that. We have another poll question 2 that we'd like to do now, which is all about where your focus is in terms of the tool set that you're using. And we understand that we've got a lot of people on the call who may not be using HP PPM. So this really applies to any PPM tools that you're using. In the Merck case, they're very much focused on project control in the way they're using PPM tools, as you'll hear shortly from Clemens. So we're interested in what you're doing with tools today. Whichever tools you're using, you can actually select multiple things here. So if you're doing portfolio as well as project, you can select both of those, and resource management and time recording. If you're doing those kinds of things through your PPM tools, I would appreciate understanding that. So please select as many of these that apply to you: project control, portfolio management, resource management and time recording, or again, other. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that you could be doing with your PPM systems as well. So we'll give those a few seconds too to get people's impressions on what they're doing with their tool set. And again, this could be the HP tool set or other tools that you might be using today across the organization. And then we'll hear from Clemens in a minute, obviously his focus in the Merck organization. Okay, and then let's have those results up. Okay, that was pretty interesting and pretty much what you'd expect. There's a lot of people using their tools for a lot of these different things. So 74% of people said that they're using tools today for project control. It's pretty much to be expected as the or highest number of people responding to that one. 65% are using their tools for portfolio management. That's actually a little higher than I expected, but that's great, and is also an encouraging sign. And something you might expect, I suppose. A lot of companies really focus now on the overall portfolio management. And then 57% saying that they're also using tools for resource management and time recording, which is also very interesting, and again, something we see a lot across a lot of organizations, particularly focused on time, and I guess resource too. So that makes sense in terms of that being 57%. And then another 17% in other areas. So it seems like we certainly hit the major 3 topics that people are using these tools for, but also 17% doing other things with their tool set too. So that's interesting as well. And then if you have questions about these areas and or want to make comments, you can do that in the question box too, and we'll pick those up as we do Q&A. Great, thank you for participating in the poll. Let me hand it back to you, Clemens.
Okay, thanks, Richard. So I will continue with slide 18. So the next topic would be the Merck Information Services, so the IT organization I'm working in. I thought this could be interesting to see more about the background. I would not only show the organization itself, but also some processual and other aspects that build an important background. So now for the facts and figures on IT at Merck, slide number 19, there you see the organizational chart down below. On the left-hand side of the organizational chart, you see 4 boxes which are along certain processes that are facing the business, like marketing, sales, e-business. The left box are manufacturing, architecture, new technologies. The third box is IS, business technology support, so this is for group functions like HR and so on. And the IS, research and development, is facing the R&D parts of the different divisions. Then we have two boxes, IS Shared Services and Business Processes, Data and Systems Harmonization. So IS Shared Services is basically our factory providing the services, hosting, infrastructure, and so on. And the Business Processes, Data, Systems Harmonization is very heavily engaged in ERP. And on the right-hand side, you have this one box, IS Strategy, Operations, and Performance Improvement. This is the department where I belong to, more or less the governance department. We are providing service around all these governance aspects like compliance, quality, project management, so different processes. I will show more about this just in a second. About the size of the organization, you see right above, we have 3 global service centers, or you see on the map as well. The headquarters is in Darmstadt. We have a service center, a large one in Boston, and another for Asia, the service center in Singapore. There are the 7 main departments I have already shown. We have some 20 core IT processes. We are certified according to ISO 9001, 20000, and 27001. And we are working for providing services into some 120 local IT units in some 67 countries. So this is this may change, of course, once in a while. We have around 1,000 employees working in the IS organization currently. So this is the internal headcount plus the externals, of course. Going to the next slide, you will see then that's not only about hierarchical organization, but we have several aspects of organization. So the first is we have a line organization with cross-divisional focus, as I showed you, the left 4 boxes with the different marketing and sales, R&D, and so on, business-facing departments. So this is also amended with some cross-divisional activity organization. I will show more about this in the next slides. So the second point is still on slide 20. We have a service-oriented operating model to support the transition of IS into a fully business-driven organization. Also, I will show more about this. And thirdly, we are organized, so our processes are organized in a certain structure to make sure our IT machine works efficiently, secure, and compliant, of course. Now going to slide number 21, you see the cross-divisional business and IT. So this is a kind of fixed meeting structure we have for the business-facing IS departments. They meet once in a quarter, and they meet together with, on one hand side, the domain lead. So this would be the department leader of a certain, like research and development of the IS department for research and development process. And they meet together with functional leaders of the different divisions. So of course you have R&D in all the divisions, and so the functional leaders would be present here in that meeting. Also from the IS side, we would have a domain architect, the service owner, and other experts, also a controller, and the CIO would be present as well in this meeting. So this is a very important structure to make sure we stay aligned and we increase being aligned with the business with regard to our IT. The second, on slide number 22, the second aspect is the operating model we use to have our supply and demand organized. On the left-hand side, you see the supply side, meaning the provision of the service components like hosting, application maintenance, network infrastructure, and so on. So we have around 100 IT service components, such technical components, but we do not charge them or provide them in such a technical way, but we build them into services that are understood by the business. We call them business IT services. This makes sure that the business knows what they are paying for, after all, and understand that what we provide is really a service in their language and in their understanding, not in ours. So we do not sell CPU seconds or network bandwidth or whatsoever. We serve business services. And from the demand side, we have relationship managers. We call them also business partners. And the business customer would be in direct contact. It's like a key account manager or like that. And they would take up the demand and bring it into the IT. So a relationship manager would bring the demand into the IT along a certain process of portfolio management, of course, and also, of course, supported by the structure that I showed you in the slide before. So the business IT groups, of course, are very important functional groups here to get this demand and portfolio management and prioritization ready. Now, going to the next slide, you see the process landscape. So this is the third aspect I want to show you with regard to the context of PPMC. And here you find project management right down below in the transition area. So transition is the big process block around all these processes like asset management, change management, release, deployment, configuration, knowledge management, service validation and test, and so on. All this around transition. And here project management, my process, is embedded. On the left-hand side above, in the strategy block, you see portfolio management, which is related to my process as well. And here we have the others like relationship, demand management, communication management, and so on. So this is just for you to see where my process is embedded and where PPMC functionality is embedded into. So going to the next slide, number 24, we will now be taking a look back into the journey at Merck, specifically the PPMC journey. So this is some 7 years old, and I will show you how this evolved in the recent years. So historically, before 2007, firstly, our IT was not so much a global one. So the organization was not fully global, and even the services were not provided globally, but we were mostly headquarter-oriented, with some parts of services provided into the world. We were using, by then, we did not use PPMC, but for example, CAPS for the timesheet booking, and SAP PS for cost accounting, for project cost accounting, plus Microsoft Project as optional tool for the project leaders, and of course, as always, Excel was in place. From 2007 onward, we started with PPMC, and this was following an acquisition. We acquired Serono, a Geneva-based pharmaceutical company, and Serono had PPMC already, and then this became our global tool for project key data, you could say, and it was also combined with the project control, so with checkpoint reviews, which were documented in PPMC. Not automatic, but mostly manual. We had meetings, checkpoint meetings, and the results were just documented like in PPMC. For portfolio management, we had the data available already in PPMC, but did not fully deploy that. From 2013, there was another shift or another big step forward. We automated the complete project control process and put it into a PPMC-provided e-workflow. So this was quite a big step. So the checkpoint meetings were now replaced by e-workflow submissions by the project leaders and reviews by the experts. And from 2013 onward, we also used the portfolio planning data directly, transferred them out of PPMC into the project accounting system for the planning purposes, which was also quite a step forward. And since mid-2014, we refined this project control process. I will show more details about this, and made it more flexible with regard to the approval modes we have for the checkpoints. So this was, of course, following requests regarding procedural flexibility and easiness of use and simplicity of the whole process. Now, looking at a kind of, so some key figures in slide number 26, we have a certain setup, not only with regard to PPMC or tools, but also with regard to how we handle, how we do projects, how we manage them. So what you see here on slide 26 is also a kind of challenge. We have some 400 project leaders, but as you can imagine, in an organization of this size, they are not full-time project leaders. We have some 700 projects per year that are going through our processes, and the average budget, this is the gray wheel, is around 230K. But looking into more details on the right-hand side, with regard to the 230K average budget of projects, you will see that some 80% of the project count, so of these 700 projects, 80% of these 700 projects are below 100K, so we have lots of small projects. On the other hand, the budget, so 90% of the budget are consumed by major projects. So major projects exceed 500K or at least 250K, so these are large ones. So the budget is consumed by the major projects, but we also have great lots of smaller projects. So this is our landscape. And the project leaders, if you look on the left side down below, you will see that the engagement ranges from, I would say, even less than 10% part-time up to full-time. And most of these 400, I would say not more than 40 project leaders would be working as full-time project leaders. Most of them are developers, so part of their time is developing, and also quite a lot of them work in service delivery, so in maintenance of applications and so on, which means that qualification is of course a big topic, and so they have to ease of use and so on. I would show this later. And the 700 projects are ranging from 6,000 euros to 20 million, so also a big range of project size, which gives us quite, so looking at the small projects, which gives us quite a level of agility. So small projects have the advantage of being very quick in delivery, in deployment, very well in the planability, so to say, and so on, while the major projects, of course, are necessary with regard to strategic aspects and so on.
So, may I ask a quick question, please? We have one come in here that I think is relevant to answer now. Because on the previous slide, you were talking about PPM and your accounting systems and other systems that are in use. And so the question came in, is your planning performed in your PPM center tool, or is it in the accounting system or in some other place? How do you handle the planning overall, unless you're going to come to that in the next slide?
So the PPMC is the tool for portfolio planning for projects. So it's not for services. We use it only for projects.
Thank you.
But it's of course, this is our planning tool for projects, yes.
Excellent.
Okay. Any more questions? Or
no, there's one or two others coming in, but I think they're good for a summary later on, so we'll do that.
Okay.
Later. Thank you.
So maybe speed up a bit so we don't lose too much time with my, at least I should say in slide number 27, so the project challenge, I think it's important to know, which is also a background for PPMC, we need simple procedures. If you have so many project leaders, you cannot make a complicated tool, complicated procedures and so on. So we have a pressure to simplify and simplify and simplify every year again, every month again, you could say. So we also need easy-to-use support tools. So PPMC needs to be easy to use, so that even the setup and the configuration needs to follow this rule. The portfolio management, of course, needs to be efficient. If you have 700 projects to be managed as a portfolio, prioritization and all this, it's clear to have an efficient way of doing that. We have a high share, as mentioned already, of applied project slicing, agile somehow. So even though these are all projects, single projects, it's still a kind of slicing sometimes. So bringing a big one into several small ones. And we need a strong support for the project leaders with regard to training. So in most of the above challenges have triggered PPMC enhancements in the last years. We are steadily enhancing it. So going to slide number 28, you would see PPMC in its context. So the blue box is our tool, and immediately around this box you find SAP PS for the project accounting right above. On the right-hand side, the IT Service Manager, HP's IT Service Manager for the service portfolio management, which is interlinked, of course, because every project usually links into a service that is being changed. Down below, the change and release, also managed by the IT Service Manager of HP. We have a reporting front end, now a new one. It's not fully in place yet, SAP PBO based. At the moment, we are still working with an Excel setup, but we strive to migrate this in the next weeks into SAP PBO environment. We use, of course, SAP CO for the local cost center planning. This is not directly interlinked with PPMC, but it's, of course there is a kind of connection. And with regard to authorization, financial authorization, we use an e-workflow system called CAPEX in SAP PS environment. And in the greater circle, you see SAP BW, IT Service Manager for configuration, service level, incident and problem, and so on. The other processes that are linked further away from PPMC. Going to slide number 29, and now focusing and looking at the current situation. So how did we set up? What do we intend with our setup of PPMC? Is shown first in slide number 30, where you have a kind of overview from HP, and the red circles show what we use. So of course the financial management component, with regard to reporting on the right hand above, scorecard, KPIs, reporting, status, and so on. This I do not think we use very extensively because we have a separate reporting system, as I mentioned, in SAP PBO. Portfolio management is an important part of what we use, and for the project control, of course, the proposal, program, project management components. And in the mid below, you see resource management. So this we do not use yet, but what I have seen especially from the newer releases in PPMC is very attractive. So I can imagine that we will deploy this also for IS, because there has been request for resource management, a unification, so to get rid of all the Excel world we have also here. Going to the next slide. So this shows something about the portfolio management, slide number 31. So we have what we call BZ, business, I don't know, sorry, I don't know what this acronym means. But it's just about different aspects of prioritization. So 3 aspects are along strategic fit, value fit, financial fit, like what does a project contribute to the business strategy or to the IT strategy? What does it contribute to process excellence or to operating result? What does it contribute to financial benefit? So all these aspects are, of course, important for prioritization of a project, for portfolio management. And down below you find more about the organizational readiness, architectural technology fit, So looking into such questions. And of course, the urgency aspect, what would happen if we don't do it. So and all these are evaluated along a certain categories and numbers, and it will bring out a kind of prioritization proposal once it's filled, and this would be filled for all the projects for prioritization. Now going to slide number 32, the portfolio planning is along certain areas, starting with the wish list. So the green area is the wish list, so demand, and this is what the business requests, but what has not been evaluated and checked, cross-checked, and discussed yet. So it's out of the official portfolio, but it can get into, of course, by certain, for example, by this evaluation and prioritization. And when it's in the portfolio, all the projects in the portfolio can be approved, can be created into projects, and then approved. And of course, once they are approved, they can put on hold, or of course, once at a certain point in time, they will be closed or terminated. So this is a kind of overview about how this portfolio planning works in a very general way. Going to the next slide is show. Yeah.
I have a couple of more questions I'd like to break in. The first one being, I see you guys use HP PPM for IT financial management. Do you integrate PPM with your enterprise financial application as well?
I wouldn't say integrate. So what we have today is the financial management as it is in PPMC is just, as I understand it, is we use it to kind of clearly detail the breakdowns, so the structure of the finance, like CapEx, capital expenditures, operational expenditures, and so on, and work effort and hardware and so on, hardware investment, software investment. So this is with regard to financial management and the time stretch, of course, of the financials. So the integration with our financial systems is not actually the case. So we do not integrate it, for example, with SAP PS, what I mentioned before. So there is a kind of, I would say it's a manual way of putting the data, the key data from PPMC into the financial system. It's not integrated.
All right, and I have a second one as well. You mentioned the plan to look at resource management. When do you plan to do that, and what are you using today?
Yeah, we are using, so currently we use Excel sheets, basically. So there is no harmonized or whatsoever automated tool-supported resource management, so every department would do it on its own. We do not have governed this, and this is maybe one of the reasons that there has been a request to do so to harmonize and to stronger automate this because of our new organization, which requires more resource management support. So when will we do it? This is not fully clear. So as I said, we are interested in the PPMC provided solution, especially the newer release. We are currently at 3.2, I think, and there are no particular plans for deployment.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So I would go on now with, I have been at slide 33. There you see, I think it's a generic way of how PPMC is handling that. So you have, in the portfolio, we say we have proposals. So this is not a project yet, it's a project proposal. And from one proposal, you can generate several projects. So this is the first. You can even generate a program, of course. And you can also generate a study and and after the study you go into the project and so on. So this is what this slide intends to show. A proposal can go into several projects, basically. Going to the next slide, this is, I think, one I would spend 1 or 2 minutes on. It shows the way we do the project control. So as by now we have 5 different lanes which we use for the different types of projects. Like a major project is usually, so a major project means it exceeds 500K. An implementation project is usually for projects implementing a new or a strongly changed application or system. Then the change or rollout is the third lane. It's for changes that that are not related to new systems or application changes, or just a change within a service. The fourth one is a study, and then we have procurement projects. So as we also do our hardware procurement, for example, through the portfolio management, this is also one of the lanes we use for project control. So even though there's nothing being implemented in procurement, we still use the checkpoints to make sure some basic rules are followed. And as you can see at this slide, you have a different intensity of control and of rules. If you come from the top, from the major project, you start with a study usually, where the user requirements would be the result. After the study, you go into the checkpoint. So the green symbols are checkpoints. So at every checkpoint, there is a submission by the project leader. For the submission of a checkpoint, he has to provide certain data and sometimes even documents to be uploaded into PPMC. And after the project leader has submitted, this would be checked and reviewed by certain experts. I will show this in detail later. And so you see you have, at the maximum, you have 4 checkpoints. So checkpoint 1 before the study starts, so the first green symbol. Checkpoint 2, implementation, before the implementation starts. Checkpoint 4 is before going live. And checkpoint 5 is the project closure. And if you go down to the last lane, procurement, it's only 2 checkpoints. So the starting point, checkpoint 2, procurement, and the closure. And in between you have different levels of control, different requirements with regard to documents, and so on and so on. And this is fully managed with PPMC. So we have kind of hubbed together different process owners or process experts into this procedure, which we call SDLC, Software Development, System Development Lifecycle.
Clemens,
yeah.
A quick question there already that is coming in. Did you use Merck's stage gates or ones that are suggested by PPMC?
No, we have Merck-specific stage gates. So I do not know in how far this is already the same as PPMC is proposing, but what I know is that the name of these checkpoints and so on that are particularly Merck-specific, I would say.
All right.
I do not claim that they are the same, and I do not claim that they are different, but they have been developed in our own environment. You could, of course, do more of them even during the implementation phases and so on, but this is how we do it.
Great.
Okay. Then going to slide number 35. Here you see the way our experts are involved into that project control. So you can see here we have 10 different expert streams, starting with the project management, ending with the risk management. And all these experts, many of them are process owners or delegates of the process owners, and they do the checks along the different checkpoints, so CP1 study on the left-hand side and CP5 closure. And of course you can imagine that the checks they do are different in the different checkpoints. And it's not only that, but also the different streams have different modalities, how they want to see and which checkpoints they want to check. For example, the project management, the first line, this is our PMO basically, they are involved into every single checkpoint. And there is no exception. And on the other hand, if you look at Service Desk, for example, Service Desk is only involved into CP2 implementation. So only when a new system is going to be implemented, the Service Desk wants to look into a certain checkpoint. And all in between there are different modes. And another aspect is on this slide 35 is that we have different approval modes. For example, if you see a pencil means that this expert is in veto mode, as you can see down in the slide. So there is no automatic approval. The expert has to respond within 48 hours, meaning 2 working days. So it's not really literally 48 hours, it's 2 working days. So if a weekend is in between, it's from Friday morning to Tuesday morning, so to say. But they have a veto mode. So if they say no, the project would stop at this point. The checkpoint would not be approved. And we also have advisory mode. This means if you have if you see this tick or this little hook, this is the advisory mode. It means that the respective expert just gives an advice. He's free to give it, but he does not have the authority to stop the project at the checkpoint if he does not agree. So this we do at certain checkpoints and by certain process owners as they require. And for example, there is also another mode. It's called, it's the hand. When you see the hand, there is no expert approval at the checkpoint itself, but the expert would do spot checks or audit-based reviews. And this shows that we have a high flexibility. This can be changed more or less overnight from within 2 workdays or so by opening a ticket. If an expert says, I want to have a veto mode for checkpoint 2, where I currently have advisory mode, this can be done in a very short time. So we don't need developers or whatsoever. This is very flexible. So now, going ahead, so we are late in time, I see. Slide number 36 shows just a screenshot of what a project leader would have to enter. So it's of course only part of, but here you can see that he has to enter certain data fields and has to maybe upload certain documents or to tick certain questions, like is the project confidential, and so on and so on. Next slide, slide number 37, shows what happens when a project leader submits a project. So all the experts that are in the table that I showed you before will be alerted. So they will receive a notification that a submission has taken place and that they are requested to look into that project. Here in slide 37, you see that the costing and chargeback, the enterprise architecture, IT compliance, project management, and training services are requested to give their approval or to give their comments. And you see also that costing and chargeback has said it's not okay, so there is a kind of rejection of that submission, and the project leader would be requested to resubmit with the required changes that he has to do. And if an expert has said okay, he would not be requested again just because another expert has said no, for example. What you also see is that the submission time is tracked and the timeout is tracked, so our 48-hour rule or 2 workdays rule is also displayed here in that dashboard. Okay, this was about the checkpoint review. What we also have is automatic generation of documents. For example, the financial authorization document, which because we are working globally, so we do not have an authorization e-workflow for all the different companies in the world. They are very small companies, and they are not integrated into a workflow, e-workflow yet, and there might be also signature collecting. And for this, we have a generation of authorization documents directly out of PPMC. The layout, which is interesting, is based on a WinWord file. So we define the layout of that generated document in a WinWord file. There are, of course, certain formulas entered by the programmers, but the layout itself is defined directly and by myself, for example. So I do not need the particular skills to develop such a automatic generation document. This is very helpful. We are also very flexible here to change the layout of documents. Now, finally, lessons learned and perspective. We are entering now slide number 40. So the lessons we learned is first that the IT, what I see, should be organized towards the business to undergird effective demand and portfolio management. This is a very general rule, I would say, but our CIO has put intensive focus to this. But it's also important not just to know we should do so, but to organize the IT along such a rule if you want to do that. Secondly, portfolio and project control processes need to be in place and interlinked with the service management and reporting processes. So this is about our process work we have. It's very clear that if you would not have such processes in place, we could not bring them together into such a project control thing as we have today. So we need the different processes, and they need to be interlinked, of course. Thirdly, if you think about an appropriate setup for PPMC, you need, of course, to consider your quantity structure. After all, ours may be very, very different from yours. So the project budget, people quantity structure, and the project mindset of your organization is also important. So if you have 400 project leaders working with the 10% engagement, of course you can be sure that they are not 100% focused on all the different details and bits and bytes of project management, because they are facing different challenges all the day. And fourth and last, PPMC as an IT internal process support tool requires, of course, integration into the tool and data landscape for service portfolio management and consistent management reporting. Now the perspective, slide number 41. So what we are looking at for the future is first a kind of challenge which you, I assume, would also face. So the cloud is of course affecting also the way we do projects. For example, if you have an SaaS, so software as a service, it can happen that the business starts buying a software as a service without the IT knowing it. And still, there are certain aspects that should be controlled by IT. And so our CIO has pushed for a cloud policy. So we want to proactively approach the business and make sure we do not miss something, and also support the business in this particular thing, because it's really a strong trend. So we would evaluate cloud-based deployment of PPMC to even support this stronger. Currently, PPMC has been set up for hosted, so for on-premise solutions, more or less. And the language of SaaS is a bit different, and the approach is a bit different. So we want to support this stronger. So we want to improve our project control for cloud types, so to make sure they do not slip through our fingers, of course. And the further requirements are, as I already mentioned, so resource management for our project delivery units, and to give even more support for agile project management methodology, which is, I don't think this is particularly relevant for PPMC, but it would maybe end up in a more flexible multi go live projects and so on. So this is where we are looking at with regard to the future, and this is basically it, what I wanted to show you. So feel free to ask more questions. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Clemens, for that really good presentation. Now we're running a little bit over time, but we are going to keep the webinar open for those of you that want to stay for a couple of more minutes and go through some of the questions that have arrived. If you need to go, you can go. The webinar is finished, and thank you very much for attending today. Please fill out the survey at the end of the webinar when you leave. And again, thank you very much. And I can say, Clemens, there are really a lot of thank you notes coming in into the questions pane. So I guess a lot of people really appreciated your presentation today.
Oh, thank you.
All right, let me just scroll a little bit and take the first question here. This question is about proposals and projects. We use proposals and projects. Can you explain what a study is?
Okay. So a study is just a kind of preparation, so it's a kind of like a feasibility study. So before you would go into an implementation, I think this is very generic. Before you go into an implementation, if you do not have the requirements fully set, and if you do not know the platform, the architecture, and so on, you would maybe take some time and some efforts to clarify these questions. And this is what we call a study. It's done, of course. So it can be in the size of a large project. If you do a study for a big program, for a million program, you might take some 300, 400, 500K to do a study, and this needs to be managed as a project as well. And the only thing is you would not have a kind of deployment afterwards, but the result of a study would be the user requirements, the clarified platform application, whatsoever you are doing, and maybe even a vendor RFP, whatsoever, and then you could go into the implementation. This is what we call a study.
All right, thank you. The second question then on my list is, do you roll up your financial information from individual projects, including small projects, in PPMC?
Roll up. So
yeah, do you roll up
financial? Try to explain.
I don't know,
okay,
Richard,
can you reread it,
yeah, I think we can go back and take that offline, perhaps. Then,
yeah.
I think that.
Okay,
yeah, I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah,
let's move on. We'll follow up with that offline.
Okay, great. Okay. Next question then. What are the impact of PPMC on the success rate of implemented projects in Merck?
The impact of PPMC on the success rate.
Must be pretty high, huh?
What I think is PPMC is helping us quite a lot with regard to portfolio management and with regard to making sure that the quality of our project is controllable. So if we would not have this in place, we would not be sure about project quality results without measuring it, but then it would be too late. So we have a possibility to make sure the quality is right even before the project is going down the lane. And so this is very helpful. Also, the automation level that enables us to have 10 different experts look at one project within 2 work days and give a feedback for the project leader that he can go on with this project. This is quite efficient, I would say. So efficiency is, at least I would say, one of the key points what PPMC is doing for us. So it helps us somehow save money, and it also helps us to save kind of quality level. And the second is portfolio management, so to use it for planning, for prioritization. So this is a very helpful tool, I would say. Hello?
Yeah, all right. Maybe we have time for one last question. This is, when a checkpoint is submitted for approval, are all the related documents attached and available on PPMC?
Yes and no. So basically yes, because we want to have PPMC as the central tool for these checkpoint-related, control-related documents. And in the ideal case, we would love to have everything in PPMC. But there is at least one area where this would be over-engineered or overloaded. We have other tools where we, for example, document user requirements or requirements for a project, requirements management tools, especially in the ERP area, which is where we have very heavy programs going on, and they have tools of their own to document requirements and to manage and track and so on. And we do not completely copy-paste this, but just give a reference into PPMC. So these other documents and tools, documents can be found in the other tools, or content can be found in the other tools. So it's not fully everything in PPMC, but whatever we can, avoiding double documentation and double work, we would do in PPMC.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Clemens. I think we break here for today.
Okay.
And I would like to ask remaining attendees, when you now exit this webinar, please complete the short survey and opt in for more information from HP Software as you leave. And you will find this webinar recorded on our webpage at vividworldwide.org. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay.
And thank you, Richard, if you're still there.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian, for managing this for us. Thank you, everybody.
Sure, no
Thank you
problem.
very much.
Thank you.